for coming out and joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I am Tanya Baptiste. I'm the Director of Families and School Counseling for the Roslyn Public Schools. And this evening, we have joining us today Jessica Graff, who is our new assistant principal, and Ms. Totillo, who is our resident counselor for the evening. This night is typically put on by our counseling department. Again, we're battling the flu. So we are here with backup and support, really just to sit down and have a conversation about where you are right now in high school. I also want to welcome Dr. Brusowski, our athletic director, and our wonderful new principal, Dr. Dave Lazarus. So we really wanted you to come out tonight to really just have a candid conversation about where you are in high school. And we didn't want to talk at you, we didn't want to be on the screen, we wanted it to be really a much more intimate involvement where we can talk about things that are relative to you right now in high school, open up the floor for discussion and conversation, and really just walk you through things that you should be thinking about right now at this time, right? 9th and 10th grade, the 9th graders have just finished a semester of high school. I hope it's been going well. I'm sure there were some bumps in the road, but such is life, right? And 10th graders, you're just stepping into your second semester of 10th grade, where now you're going to be walking into junior year, which is filled with a lot of different challenges and excitement and things that you really should be honing in and focusing on as you prepare for whatever that next step is going to be as you leave high school. So we have a PowerPoint presentation scheduled. We'll let you see it afterward. We're just going to talk through some very key things. So, reflection. I think that reflection is probably the biggest thing that you guys should be doing right now. Reflecting on where am I? We're heading into midterms in about a week or two. And so you're midway point through the year. Are you working hard? Are you trying? Are you doing well in your classes? Have you developed a system for yourself that works? Developing a system means really figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and perfecting that. So you're constantly asking the questions. Am I going to extra help? Am I seeking out my teachers? Am I struggling in any one particular subject? Can I ask for additional support from home? Can I get more help from school? Those are the things that you should constantly be reflecting on to make sure that you are moving in a positive direction. And always, when something is going on, whether it's the parent and hopefully the student first, reach out to the counseling center. Your counselor is a very, very key person in your high school journey. Luckily, you stay with your counselor for the next 4 years through high school. And it allows you and your family to develop this close relationship with this person that is helping to guide you through your educational journey, whatever that journey looks like for yourself. And I know Mr. Tiller likes to talk about that in terms of, your relationship and seeking them out for help and guidance and support and making appointments with us. We recently, before the break, met with all of the 9th graders, really just to check in with them. And this week, we actually met with all the 10th graders. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're going to sit. We wanted this to be more of a casual conversation. But so over the 4 years of high school, the counseling office, as Ms. Baptiste is saying, we're here to support the students. How many in here are 9th graders or 9th grade families? And how many are 10? Okay, that's great. So at different points in the high school process, there are things you're going to be focusing on. And the nice thing about us staying with you for 4 years is that we're with you to celebrate all those successes, and we're also with you alongside challenges or struggles or decision-making moments, right? We do in the senior year, each counselor does write a letter of recommendation for their senior, whether it's for summer job, college, employment. So having those 4 years together it makes such a personalized narrative that goes on your behalf. So again, as Ms. Baptiste said, really good to know your counselor because that can go a long way. Not only in building that relationship and personalizing that letter, but also in casual conversation, if a student says to me, for example, I love writing, that, is a segue for you to say, do you know about our English writing program? Do you know about this in the school building that you can access and do right now while you're in Roslyn? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, because everyone is kind of busy doing their things. So if they didn't share that, we wouldn't know that, right? If a scholarship or a summer opportunity comes into my inbox, I think of the student that told me they want to do art, or the student that told me they want to do journalism, and I can forward it along to them, like, hey, check out the summer program. So the more we know about you and your interests, the more we can support you and your interests. So how we go about doing that on a daily basis in the counseling office is we are available for the individual meetings, but we do have a sizable caseload, so the way to reach people at every level is the large group guidance lessons. So as Ms. Baptiste said, we did that with the 9th graders. So the 9th graders in the room, with the families in the room, your children were given a lesson on Naviance, which is a database that we use and they will use all throughout high school. So Naviance, you may have heard of it. It is a college search database. It does give the upperclassmen access to a lot of statistical information about college admissions. They get very interested in that. But for 9th and 10th graders, it has a wealth of information about learning styles, learning about your personality, learning about strengths. So those assessments that they did with us, both the 9th graders and the 10th graders, are housed in their Naviance account. So you can always ask your child or students in the audience, you can share with your family if they ask you, can I see that personality assessment you did? Or in that personality assessment, links to environments that are conducive for your personality, which links to careers that offer you that type of environment, which links to majors that offer you that access to that career. So we kind of start from like intrinsic, who are you, what do you like, what are your strengths? And then we kind of branch off from there, where does that bring you, for your future? And then with the students, we go more into that in individual meetings regarding course selection. So we're coming into the scheduling for next year, if you can believe it. And we've already started to tell the students, you're going to be receiving teacher recommendations. Look at those carefully. Your teacher has seen what you can do in the class, but your teacher also knows the content of that course and the content of the course that will be the sequel, next year. So ask the questions that you might have. If you received a recommendation that, you were hoping for a different one, so for example, if you were recommended for English Regents level and you were hoping to really try the English honors, your student, your child, should have a conversation with the teacher, to understand that recommendation. The teacher then can tell them, well, your writing really needs to go more in depth, or you need to really participate more and show what you've gained from that literary text. We have 6 more months now where that insight you can try to employ it in your classroom and really see, are you ready then for honors? At least you have tangible information about how to strengthen your performance before you go into a more rigorous class. So when we talk about scheduling in the individual meetings with the counselors, we'll talk about this is what your teacher's recommending, what are you hoping to take? And when we have that conversation about you're asking for that class, why are you asking for that class? And how does that class serve your interests in the long term? And sometimes in those conversations, that's helpful in them making choices. So we're kind of looking at the overview of self-assessment and self-reflection, because sometimes a student will say, I really want to do nursing. And then you're looking at how they're doing math and science and they're struggling. And that doesn't mean that student's not going to be a nurse, but it does have to be a conversation about math is very important in admissions for nursing. Science is very important in admissions for nursing programs. What can you do now, if that's your hope and dream, to, again, get that support to improve? And what do we have in the school to help you? Did you want to add something?
Yeah. Just to add on to what Mr. Tiller was saying, as we begin the scheduling process,
it is very important to build in the reflection that we've been talking about all throughout, the discussion, in the scope of your larger life, because we all have commitments and things that we want and hope to do outside of school. When you're talking about increasing in a level of instructional difficulty, such as an honors class versus a Regents class versus an AP class, there is a significant time commitment that comes along with all of that, and that's a common phrase that you're going to hear as we're moving through the scheduling process. Our best advice is to just be realistic about what you can take on, what you're willing to take on, what sacrifices you might need to make in order to build such a rigorous class into your schedule. And also knowing that what's right for you is not going to be right for the person next to you, and that's okay. We all have a different path to follow throughout high school, and while there's definitely validity to, we want students to be challenging themselves in a wide variety of rigorous courses, it is also not to anybody's benefit to take on a bit more than you can handle and then struggle through that more advanced class. So it's the quality of the work that matters most, while the level and the rigor is very important. What is even more critical, I believe, is being able to realistically take that on and perform to your highest potential.
That leads me to, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because you will hear often we talk about the transcript. And the transcript, I like to say, is the DNA of a student. It tells exactly what kind of student that you have been in high school. And those things are indicated through the courses that you've taken and the final grades that you've gotten in those courses. So whatever your next step is, we will speak to the room in terms of college, because 96% of our students matriculate to four-year universities, so that's what we'll talk about. When colleges are actually looking at your transcript, they're looking at two things. They're looking at, one, what kind of student have you been in whatever course of study you have taken, right? Have you excelled in one particular discipline over the other? Have you struggled in one subject over the other? Have you shown a consistency, or have you steadily improved as the years have gone on by taking more and more rigor as you have demonstrated that you can handle it? And so they're looking at all kinds of trends. You will constantly hear me say, protect your transcript. And I say that because, yes, we are a self-selection district, which allows you to self-select into courses that you may not have been recommended for. However, because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it, right? You have to think about how can you handle the rigor of what you're trying to attempt to do in conjunction with everything else that you have on your plate. And I say that because I hope that you walk into Roslyn High School being more than just a student sitting in a classroom taking a bunch of courses. This school district and high school is rich and wealthy in so many academic opportunities, extracurricular activities, clubs, programs, you name it. There is something that every single student can get involved in. So in addition to being in the classroom and always protect the transcript, the grades are first, right? Getting involved in other things. And even if you don't know what that is, that's the beauty of being able to do so many different things and just try. This is the opportunity for you to go through the course offering guide and go through our elective offerings and see what we have and say, you know what, I always like to tinker. Maybe I'll like that robotics class, right? I love speaking in front of a crowd. Maybe I'll take public speaking. I love to write. Maybe I'll do independent study. I love to question things. Maybe I'll take on research. There is something for everyone, ranging from the humanities to the social sciences, to benchmark research, to engineering, to arts and fine arts, to music, to performance. Anything you want to do, you can do. Because in addition to looking at that transcript, the other thing, they're looking to see how have you spent your time in high school? What have you done and what are you doing? In the classroom and outside of the classroom. And along the way, as you're doing that, and you're building your transcript brick by brick, and you're building your resume activity by activity, you're also engaging with your peers, and you're getting to know the faculty around you who can help guide you so that in the end, as Mr. Tuttle said, when she's helping you pull together your portfolio for whatever it is that next step that you're going to do, she's writing about you and for you, and you have other people in the building that can write for you and vouch for you as well. But you have also enriched your experience as a student. And experiential learning to me, I think, is better than any book learning that you could possibly have. Because you're taking what you're learning in a book and you're applying it to the real world. And that is going to propel you as you leave college or leave whatever you're doing and go into the real world. We are fortunate enough to offer those opportunities for you, and we'd love for you to take advantage of those things.
The counseling department summarized a lot of those opportunities very nicely for you here. This is going to be shared out to you by early next week. Just resources for you to, as a family, sit together, look through our club descriptions, look through information about community service. It is an expectation that all of our graduates will have performed 40 hours of community service by the time they graduate. There are usually 40 weeks in a school year, so it's very, very attainable to do those 40 hours in the 160 weeks that you have. But that's just another example of how you can start to grow into yourself as a whole person outside of just the academics. So we've got lots of resources up here for you, resources on our wonderful athletics program, and other information for you to peruse together.
How many of you, my students, how many of you are involved in at least one activity outside of the classroom? Raise your hand. How many of you are involved in at least 2 activities outside of the classroom? Dad, what class are you in? Yes. Okay. No, good. Yes. Just my sense of humor. No, but good. Okay, so at least I'm glad to see that you're involved in at least one. And because the majority of the audience is in 9th grade, that's fine. Keep getting involved. It's never too late to join a club. It's never too late to start an activity. It's never too late to volunteer in your community. So please continue. You want to continue?
Yep, so just to kind of go off of that, so the 9th graders, as you know, at the start of the year, there was a club fair, just to kind of let you know how the clubs are communicated. So the students were able to kind of navigate around, pick clubs, sign up for clubs. But it's also, as the staff said, it's available on our website, all the club descriptions and the meeting schedules. And I know that students are still reconsidering, I just got an email when I returned from break, like, I think I want to join debate. I think, how do I go about that? And that's great, because everyone's always rethinking things, right? So there are some clubs that they can still join at any point in the year. I would definitely encourage your child, if there's a club they're interested in, to reach out to the advisor. Like I said, everything's on the website. You can find the advisor's name and the contact email, and just ask if it's still, an opportunity to kind of get involved in the club for the year. There are ones that are open enrollment. I know a lot of the community service-based clubs are always looking for new members because they're always fundraising. But there are certain ones that do have time frames where in the beginning of the year there's not like a tryout or some type of thing like that. If your child or students in the room, if you really don't know what club to get involved in, then maybe have a meeting with your counselor to kind of brainstorm things you'd like, because we do have a lot of clubs. So we might be able to give you or point you in a direction of some clubs you could check out. There are a lot of times where students think they need to form a club. We have so many clubs, and while we might not have something specific, if they do come and meet with us, or even Stuber, I believe, right, about their idea, there might be a way to morph what they're thinking about doing in with the current club and their mission. And again, while many people feel like they have to have a leadership title, I think, we know that leadership is shown in many ways. You don't necessarily have to have the title. If you have the initiative, if you created an event and you build recruitment for a club, even if you weren't labeled something, that's still something that you did. I know when I was the advisor here for, it's now called the CARE Club, but it was Youth Against Cancer. At one point, a freshman going into sophomore year, the advisor and I gave her treasurer because she was so active and she came up with so many ideas for our club, more so than some upperclassmen were involved, but she rightfully earned that. So, you know, having an idea, being a part of the club, and often being there and communicating your ideas is more important than the title that goes along with it. And all of that can be communicated to your future college or interview because you're speaking to something you actually did, you know, so you're passionate about it. We kind of summarized here, as Ms. Baptiste said, many of our students do go forward for a college degree. So I know a lot of the focus is on what's a college looking for, and I know in the counseling office we try to shy people away from thinking like the shoulds and I must, because that type of thinking is almost like it lumps you with everyone and it takes out the individual, because what one should do, there is no should, right? As long as you're doing what's right for you or best for you, and you can kind of speak to why you did that or why you took that course or why you didn't choose to do X because you did Y, that's more telling, you know, about who you are as a person. So we did kind of bullet point where the 4 years is taking you in terms of if you're going to be applying for college admissions. This is what an admissions team would be evaluating on. And yes, you know, the academics, again, if you're applying to college, you're going for the education. So the academics is obviously the most important piece, but we can't even say, you know, we summarized it with a GPA bullet point, but we can't even say it's GPA, because it is more the program. You know, GPA is just a number, but if you're applying to a school that's in the top elite, you need to have the appropriate program of courses. You need to show that you can handle the rigor of that type of a school with having had completion and successful completion in honors and AP classes and that type of curriculum, right? So the GPA doesn't give that information, the transcript and the program of courses does. So I don't like to get stuck in talking about what's the GPA number, what's the total number of APs I should have, because there's no answer to that, there's no single answer. It's who are you as the applicant and what is your trend? How did you do in the classes you took, and how are they related to what you're applying to do at the college you're applying to do it? So I think that's something to kind of keep in mind, and especially for the 10th graders when you're starting to schedule for 11. I think many of you might feel the pressure of I need more honors or I need more APs or whatever that may be. So I really encourage you to pause and speak with your family, think about it, balance yourself, because having a lot and not doing, you know, struggling or not doing well is probably not the best, whereas having the, you know, well-chosen classes for you where you're really shining tells a college more. And you're going into the last third of your transcript. So whatever you do next year, that's the last coursework that averages into the GPA you apply to college with. Senior classes are important. The college will ask to see what you're taking. The college will ask to see quarter one, possibly semester one grades. But your GPA at the end of next year is your application GPA for college. So you really want to go into your junior year feeling balanced, feeling prepared, feeling like you thoughtfully selected those classes, that you can, you know, keep up the outside commitments, take your driver's ed, and, you know, do your standardized testing, and still be earning the marks that you want to earn. So we kind of covered that, right? Do you want to talk about
Just something that I was a school counselor and a guidance assistant principal for years before I came to Roslyn, and something I've always encouraged students and families to do. Might sound silly, but I do think it helps when you practice it consistently over the 3 years leading up to college applications. Have some sort of way that you keep a record of why you're doing the things that you're doing. Maybe that means journaling. Maybe it means you keep a note on your phone. You might have a summer job bussing tables at a diner. You might go to camp. You might travel with your family. You might take an honors class instead of the AP. Just jot down for yourself, what was I thinking at that time, and why? What influenced my decision, and what did I learn from that experience? Maybe I learned that by choosing a class that was right for me, I was able to shine. Or maybe I saw in interacting with customers and food service the importance of communication, kindness, or whatever that might look like for you. Those are the building blocks of the story that will help you sell yourself to a college and as a whole person and not just somebody who was ticked off a list of accomplishments. So just a little tip that I like to share.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that again, the thing that's hard in the counseling office, right, you'll know nothing in life is necessarily fair, and college admissions is not fair a lot of times. So if you do fall into the shoulds, I should do this, and you overextend, and in the end you don't get into the school you thought you needed to be at, that's what lets a lot of the students down. That's what is very disappointing, right, on every level, because you feel like you gave up a lot, you sacrificed a lot, and it didn't work out. So if you stay true to yourself and you balance yourself and you do what's right for you and not what you think looks good or what you think the college wants to see, then in the end, at the end, whatever happens, you did what was right for you, you know? And I do think we get to see that in most situations, people land where they're happy and where they should be, even if it's not what their first choice was or what they thought was right for them. They do end up, they come back and they visit. We had the largest turnout this year with the alumni coming back to speak to our seniors. And all of them, you know, reported being quite happy where they were, even if it wasn't like their first choice.
I do. And we don't want to focus on the end and forget about the journey of getting there. And so I just want to make sure of that. And I don't want, especially my 9th graders and even 10th graders who are going into the junior year, to be stressed out and overwhelmed. Some of that is naturally going to come, but you have control over how much you let that affect you. And parents, you have additional control over how you guide your child and allow your child to do whatever it is that they're doing. But if you encourage them and enable them to overschedule, overindulge, be overly involved, stressed out, anxious, wired, that's just feeding into an unhealthy high school experience. You have to help them find the balance, right? So how are we doing that right now? We're going into the scheduling process, and the scheduling process can often be a nightmare at certain times because everyone thinks that they should, like Mr. Tilton said, be taking all of these classes. No, when we step into this process in the next week, please think about it carefully. Take the courses that make sense for you. Don't do what your friends are doing or what everyone else is doing, and parents try not to listen to what everyone else is doing, and everyone's telling you, you should do this, and did you sign up for that, and did you do that? It makes you crazy that you can't help your child do what's best for them, right? Zone in, go through the course offering guide, see what they can take, see what they're interested in, look at the recommendations from the teachers, use those recommendations wisely. If you're going to select, self-select appropriately. Don't self-select into 3-4 courses that you aren't recommended in, because at the end of the day, we're looking at it from a holistic point of view and looking at how that is going to affect you and impact you as you're trying to be successful and to do well, right? And parents, we are responsible for doing that. There are many times when we have students come in and say, well, you know, you let them take all these honors classes. No, my children graduated from college already. I didn't let them take the honors classes. You signed off on it. That's you. You have to be able to balance it and allow them. We want to encourage them that you can do this, but at the same time, like, just guide them, because there is a mental health crisis with our youth today. It's not a fallacy, it's not AI, it's real. And a lot of it involves what we allow them to do, what we give them exposure to, right? Which is why the cell phone ban, we're still trying to honor that during the course of the day. It's working a little bit, and change is hard, and culture shifts slowly, but it is happening. And those are also things that we have to think about when you're helping your students and guiding them through these next few years, which will set them up for success in whatever it is that they're going to do next. So again, as the recommendations come out and you start thinking about, what you want to take, at this point, 9th and 10th graders, even if we're looking at, trying out for an athletic team and you've been an athlete, that's an incredible time commitment. So you need to think about how you can be successful and committed to a team that, now you guys are open to, if some of you who are really strong athletes might already be doing varsity, but now you're open to varsity, right? And that's a lot. And are you playing more than one sport a season? Like, that's a lot. Like, you have to think about everything that you can handle on your plate and do it successfully. And so parents, please allow them. I know sometimes, we're in the land of yes all the time, and yes, you can do it, and everything goes, and, I want to be a friend, and I don't want to tell you no, but we are parents, right? And we are educators who, together as partners, we're helping you to make the decisions that are best for our children, because we want them to be just as successful as you do as well. Anything else? Next.
We've gone through quite a lot of what's up on the screen here. So for our rising sophomores, this might be helpful to you to go over just a bulleted list that really summarizes what we've been talking about throughout. One point that we have not yet touched on is about standardized testing, college exploration. If you are, a rising 10th grader, you might want to start thinking about signing up for the PSAT. The PSAT 10 is a great way that you can gauge your preparedness. It's tiered to your current level of learning, rather than if you sat for an SAT as a 10th grader, there would be content on the exam that you have not yet learned, which is just setting yourself up for an inaccurate result, or a result that's not reflective of your true, performance. Or practice ACT if that's something you're interested in. And additionally, we're so fortunate in the New York City suburbs to have access to lots of local college campuses where you might begin to just, maybe take the train into Manhattan and walk around in Morningside Heights and see the area of Columbia, or go out to Stony Brook for the day, see what, the town's like. College campuses often open themselves up to tours in springtime. It's a great time to get out there. Weather's nice, something fun that you can do together as a family throughout the spring. And it looks different for everybody, the college exploration process and how you might be spending your summers.
So we did break it into entering grade 10 and grade 11, just some quick snapshots of things to consider. So as Ms. said, with the standardized testing, 9th going into 10th, your first opportunity to take the PSAT will be in October next year. So you will receive an email blast. It usually does happen over the summer, August time. And there's a deadline to register, so just make sure that you kind of be on the lookout for that in August. And then 10th graders going into 11th grade, the PSAT is an 11th grade test, so 10th going to 11th, you can always take it as an 11th grader in October. If you are interested in the National Merit Scholarship Competition, you would have to take the PSAT as an 11th grader. That is one of the requirements to qualify for the scholarship. So make sure you're aware of that registration. What PSAT and SAT, the standardized test, we have a special night. In guidance, we do have specialized nights. So we did have a standardized testing night, which was in the fall. When you enter your junior year, there were 2 junior nights, so junior night part 1, junior night part 2, we have financial aid nights. We have specialty nights that really delve deeper into these more complex areas that have a lot of questions just on their own. But we just wanted to make sure people were aware of the PSAT and when registration opens for that, because it only happens once a year. So sometimes I'll get emails now and it passed, so you can, the students can take it again as a 10th or 11th grader in October. Right.
And one last thing that I just want to mention about that is, yes, we're a school and we're talking about grades and we're talking about transcript and we're talking about college and we're talking, because again, hopefully all of you will get there at some level. But you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a genius. Just do the best that you can. Bloom where you're planted, is what I like to say. And find other things. So maybe you're not the best student, But you have, because all of us are born with some gift, some talent. Find that, and then exploit it, right? And do whatever you can to share it, to find other opportunities that speak to it. And yes, the academics will come, but then you will still have other things so that you can feel that you are contributing, right? That it's not all just about, everyone's got to get A's and everyone's got to be in all APs, because that's not reality, right? So just figure out who you are, what you like, what you can do, and then we'll help you find opportunities to do that.
And so we put up the 11th grade things to think about. So we've focused a lot on the counseling center and how we're here to support you. But just the last goal is just reminding you, obviously the teachers are with the students all day long. So 10th going to 11th grade, those teachers are also going to be people who can write letters of recommendation for you. So developing relationships with your teachers and letting them, really get to see how you learn. They don't have to necessarily know what you do outside of the classroom, but if it goes that way, sometimes students have a teacher who's also an advisor of the club, and then that's an excellent person to write a letter for them because they've seen them in the classroom and they've seen them on the tennis court or whatever it might be. But just remember that we're all kind of here to support you students. The teachers, the counselors, and your family, and we work in collaboration, but you're the go-getter, you're the advocate, you're the person who needs to kind of keep everyone in the loop on what you're hoping to do or what you're struggling with so that we can support you.
So we've talked a lot, and as we said, we really wanted to have an open conversation and allow you FaceTime with us to even ask any questions. So, questions? Want to open it up? Anyone have a question? Yes.
Are there new courses that you need to know about from last year that will be offered next year? Or
New courses? So absolutely. So you want to talk about scheduling?
Yeah, so we're going to be receiving likely tomorrow an introductory letter to the scheduling process that will give you all the nuts and bolts about what's happening, when it's happening, how it's happening. I think there were 7 new courses proposed in a variety of disciplines, from art to science to our music programs. A couple more that I'm probably forgetting, history electives. They are all pending Board of Education approval, so they're just proposals at this point in time. But we want our students to share with us the courses that they're most interested in so that we can use that information, obviously, to hopefully be able to run the class. You'll get the course offering guide. Not every class in the guide will run because obviously we have a limited number of teachers to teach the classes that are proposed. But again, that's something that definitely you want to keep in mind. Where your interest most lies, we want you to tell us that on your Google form that you will submit to show your preferences. If you're excited about a class and some friends might also be interested in it, talk about it together. Maybe if you've got a core group of people that are able to take the class, that increases the likelihood that we might be able to run it. So please do be on the lookout for that. It should be coming to your inboxes. It'll go to the student and the parent emails that we have on record, likely tomorrow morning into later afternoon.
Of course, with the scheduling information, we'll have the new course catalog with all the courses as well as a cheat sheet elective offering.
Some of the teachers, some of the departments started telling their students about potential electives, like English has been talking to the students. Any other ones? Any other departments telling you guys? Not yet. Science? No. But I know English did, right? Yeah. So, and also just one that's kind of related to what we're talking about tonight. We do have an SAT, ACT elective, prep elective. It typically runs only in the first semester so that the students can register for the spring exams. But I know that even though it's in the course book, sometimes students or families will say, oh, we didn't know that that was available. So it's a good forum to let you know it's available and register if you're interested.
Question was, when are course selections due? So, these are 9th, 12th, 11th grades. Course selections will be due, I January 20th, and then the counselors will be meeting individually with every single student the week of the 26th through the weeks of the 26th, January 26th through February 6th. Individual.
And you'll receive, after those meetings happen, verifications that will give you a chance to see a summary of which courses did my child pick, and we will give a window of time after you've gotten that to just make any corrections or any changes as well. We ask that you give us as accurate as possible the courses that your child hopes to take now. It does really help us plan to schedule the building in a much more efficient way. As you can imagine, if we plan to run, 4 sections of AP psychology and then 25 extra kids want to take it in August, it becomes really hard to get a teacher in the room for that class. So if you take the time to read through it together, carefully plan and consider, and there are safeguards built in, you'll have a chance to review, give feedback, that will take us into like early March by the time that's all done.
They're electives, right? You're speaking electives. Yes, so they'll put it in the Google form, everything they're hoping to take, which would be all electives for the year that they want. Yeah, and they do meet with us individually, but just to kind of clarify that, they come down in their social studies class. So one counselor may have 9 students in that particular period. So while we do meet with them one-on-one, the amount of time that they have can be limited depending on how many students have that counselor at that time. So we do ask them to do a lot of, the thoughtful consideration before they submit the Google form and kind of come in with their more specific questions.
That when the scheduling information comes out, students should have their Google form submitted before they have their meetings with the counselors. Because once the forms are submitted, then it's populated onto the computer, so when they come down to sit with their counselor, we can look up and see what they've chosen, make any changes if they want to, have additional conversations, and at that point, kind of try to finalize the schedule. Okay.
But if they can, we tell them, if they can rank their electives, to just go back to what your question was, then we can rank it in the computer in a certain way, so the computer can try to give them their first choice. If you don't get your first, they get the second, and things like that. Does that make sense?
Question here? I just want to know when the teacher recommendation will come out. So
They're going to come out with that tomorrow. Yes, with the scheduling information, it'll have the teacher recommendation, it'll have all resources, dates, deadlines, all that stuff. Parent question? Same question? Yes, sir.
So realizing that we want to get our kids into the best possible colleges for them and that we want to help them get there as well, what would you counsel if there's a child that wants to take a class that would be high risk, either because they're trying to shoot for something that is more advanced than maybe honors, or they want to take a class that they don't know much about, or it's a tough subject that's difficult, or would you say to stay on the safer side, or to let them explore and somehow explain it to them?
Did everyone hear the question? Okay. Oh, okay. Ms. Baptiste here. So the question is, right, if you're trying to get into the best college, obviously, and you might have a student who wants to shoot higher, right, then it might be like a risk of shooting higher. I would say it's such an individualized question because it does depend on what the risk is, meaning, is the risk taking like AP psychology, which is an elective AP, going into 10th grade, or is the risk taking AP European history, right, which is like a core class. So I would definitely recommend that student, if they're not recommended by the teacher and they're considering one of those classes, connect with their teacher, again, to understand what would be the risk. What would that student need to do to make that risk successful for them, right, and pay out for them. In the math world, sometimes I have a student who knows they want to self-select into an honors math class and their math skills are weaker. Mr. Wimmer has given students some websites that can help them, some resources that can help them brush up on their math, some summer ideas of what they could do, so that they're in a better position if they choose to take that risk. If it is a core class, you always have the risk of a scheduling parameter. So if they decide, oh, I need to step down because I'm really struggling in this class, we might not have the space we hope to have this space in like the Global 2 honors, but if we don't, they're kind of locked in. But if it's like an AP psychology elective or AP or history and they try it and they're struggling, they have a little longer with elective APs. They usually have till November to make that decision. And if they do withdraw, it's not putting them stuck in any core class because it's not a core. It was just an elective they tried. So that's 9th into 10th. Sometimes that's a safer way for them to go because then their cores are okay. They've tried an AP and they can fill another elective if they need to step out.
I would just add to that, in addition to getting as much information as possible about the content of the class and what, getting to that performance level would entail, I would say that's really where we're relying on you as parents, as a family. You know your kids best. You've gotten to know them over the course of their lives. We obviously know that some children thrive under pressure, others crumble. So if you know that your child is somebody who's going to roll with the punches and take the challenge in stride and not get too down on themselves, then sure, that might help to sway the decision, towards taking the risk. But if you've seen over time and as challenges increase that your child becomes very overwhelmed easily, takes things very personally, takes it out on themselves, then that might be a conversation to have together of just let's pull it back for this year. Let's try, maybe in the future down the road we have the 4 years of high school course.
And I'll say this also, yes, you can be ambitious and want to do so, and if you have the intellectual capacity to challenge yourself to do so, then you should. But I would warn parents not to impose that on their children when they don't really have it, right? Because then now they're trying to please you, they're extremely anxious about it, they're stressing themselves out, they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves, and at the end of the day, you can do all of that and still not get into that school, right? So it's really about going back to, if this is what I can handle, I'm going to handle it. And if it isn't, I'm going to do me. And that's one of the biggest things that I can say. Because everyone wants to go to the same select group of colleges. It's Big 10, right? The same 10. And you're not all getting in there because it's math, right? It's math. You can't. That doesn't mean that there are so many other schools out there, right? And even in some of those schools, everyone wants the same programs, but maybe you'll get into that school for a different program, right? So it's really about being a little bit more open, a little bit more broader in your opportunities, and just trying to enjoy high school, learn as much as you can, grow, reflect, challenge yourselves inside the classroom and outside of the classroom, and you will have options, right? Another question? Yes?
Is there a set frequency that the guidance is usually meeting with our students besides post-semester time for a couple minutes, or is it really on the student to go seek feedback?
So we have the set times that they meet with them, which we, do periodically throughout the year. It's more than just scheduling. Like I said, they met with guidance before the break. The 10th graders met with them actually yesterday, this week, in smaller groups, because we do have curriculum that we cover. Then we do the individual meetings with scheduling every year. And then, really, it's up to the student. If you need to see them, come in and see them. Schedule an appointment during their free time and just check in. And we really do encourage that, because at the end of 4 years, we truly have, I don't as much anymore because I'm not a counselor anymore, but we truly have relationships with the children. And we get to know them. And then you will find that out in your junior year when we sit down and have a junior conference to really talk about what are we doing in terms of college. You'll see how that whole thing just came to being. Your family knows your counselor, they know the student, we're now strategizing to figure out what's the best options for them moving forward. But we do encourage, have the students come in. Even parents, I know that oftentimes you are, encouraged to call the council all the time and have the conversation, and that's great. But we're going to write a letter about the student, and we want that relationship with them. Did I answer? Great. Any other questions? Once again, I just want to say, I hope that this did not stress everyone out, even though life is stressful, I know. And this time is stressful. They're our children. They're growing their lives. We only want the best for them. And it comes with angst, but it's good angst too. And we just need to continue to figure out how to support them and help them so that they can thrive and they can do well because they are our future. Right? Thank you so much for coming. We want to be available. We will share the slide deck, the recording next week once everything comes in. Have a great night. Please feel free to reach out to any of us with any additional questions.